He was scoring nearly 30 points a game in the NBA playoffs. In the Philippines, almost 55. They called him the Black Superman. He won championships and was a true superstar. And then, everything started to collapse. Why did the NBA reject a player with such incredible talent? And what happened to Billy Ray Bates after he reached the very top? The most unexpected part of this story is yet to come. Imagine a player who spent just a few seasons in the NBA. He didn't become a multi-year superstar, didn't collect dozens of awards, and today is unknown to many basketball fans. But once, in the playoffs, this man began scoring points at such a speed that even experienced experts couldn't believe their eyes. His name was Billy Ray Bates. If, like me, you enjoy looking back at the great NBA legends of past decades, and you're interested in their true stories and little-known facts that are rarely talked about, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Your support truly helps the channel grow and makes it possible to bring you more videos like this. Thank you. Now, let's continue. He didn't enter the NBA as a future star. In 1978, the Houston Rockets selected him with only the 47th pick of the draft. For most clubs, this was a choice of little necessity. But behind this low number lay a player with an utterly unusual talent. Bates was born on May 31, 1956, in the small town of Kosciuszko, Mississippi. His childhood didn't resemble the life of a future professional athlete at all. There were 9 children in the family. His father passed away when Billy Ray was still young, and his mother worked hard physical labor in the cotton fields. Money was tight. But the boy had a dream: basketball. There was just one problem. There wasn't even a normal basketball hoop near the house. For most kids, this would mean one thing: they'd have to find another hobby. Billy Ray decided otherwise. He earned the money for the hoop himself. He worked in the fields, harvested soybeans, labored on cotton plantations, saved what he earned, and gradually accumulated enough to buy a basketball rim. Then he installed it near his house. No sports complex, no expensive training sessions, no famous mentors. Just a ball, a hoop, and a huge desire to play. And right there, the basketball player who would later make an entire professional club talk about him began to take shape. Billy Ray Bates had unusual physical attributes: speed, an explosive first step, power, and incredible leaping ability. He could accelerate sharply, shake off a defender, and finish an attack with a shot or a spectacular dunk. But for now, this was just a talented kid from Mississippi. Then, Bates enrolled at Kentucky State University. And right there, his abilities could no longer go unnoticed. He was becoming more and more dangerous as an offensive player. His speed and style of play set him apart from the rest. Bates didn't look like a classic basketball player who methodically scores points one after another. He could remain out of the spotlight for several minutes and then completely change the momentum of the game in a short time. Exactly this style would later become his main weapon. In 1978 came the moment he must have dreamed of since the very day he put up his own hoop by the house: the NBA Draft. But when the name Billy Ray Bates was called, it happened only at number 47. The Houston Rockets gave him a chance. It seemed like the usual story of a late draft pick: a few years of fighting for a roster spot, brief appearances on the court, and a constant attempt to prove the club didn't make a mistake. But Bates's career would take a completely different scenario, because very soon, the Portland Trail Blazers would appear in his life. And right there, the NBA would see for the first time just how dangerous this almost unknown player could be. Billy Ray Bates didn't end up in Portland immediately. After the 1978 draft, his path to the NBA proved to be much more complicated than one might expect. The Houston Rockets picked him 47th, but he couldn't secure a spot there. It seemed like the dream he had played for all those years was slipping away again. And then the Portland Trail Blazers appeared. The team gave Bates a contract at the end of the 1979-80 season. At first, it looked like an ordinary chance for a young player who needed to prove his worth. Bates received limited playing time and came off the bench. But the very first games showed one thing. This guy wasn't afraid to shoot at all. He could step onto the court, attack the rim several times, and change the pace of the whole game in a matter of minutes. Bates didn't need long to adjust to his opponent. His speed allowed him to instantly blow past defenders, and his powerful jump turned a routine attack into a spectacle. In the regular season, he played only 16 games. He averaged 11.3 points in about 16 minutes on the floor. For a rookie who just appeared on the roster, this already looked unusual. But then Bates got another chance. In late March 1980, he delivered a series of games after which his name first became known to a much wider audience. First, 26 points, then 20, then 22, and another 16. He did this coming off the bench, and Portland quickly realized the team had a very dangerous weapon in its hands. But no one knew yet how far this could go. In the playoffs, Portland was set to face the Seattle Supersonics, the defending NBA champions. For a young reserve, this was a completely different level of pressure. Here, you couldn't just pad your stats in regular season games. Every mistake could end the season. And it was precisely at this moment that Bates seemed to shift into an entirely different gear. In the first game of the series, he scored 29 points. For a player who had just appeared in the NBA, this was a stunning start. But the most interesting part was something else. This didn't look like a random flash. In the second game, Bates added 20 more points. In the third, 26. Portland lost the series 1-2 and was eliminated from the playoffs. But it was precisely after this series that Billy Ray Bates could no longer be spoken of as an unknown rookie. Over 3 playoff games, he scored 75 points, an average of 25 points per game. And this was only his first season in the NBA. For Portland, the situation was becoming especially interesting. The team had acquired a player they didn't have to pick in the first round, who wasn't considered a future superstar, and who started near the very end of the bench. And now, this same player had just scored 25 points a game against the defending champion. It seemed Bates had a huge career ahead of him. But the most incredible part was yet to come, because in the next season, he would do something that would finally transform him from a curious rookie into one of the most enigmatic figures in Portland Trail Blazers history. The following season was supposed to be the moment Billy Ray Bates's name was finally cemented in the NBA. He had already proven he could score a lot of points, but now he wasn't just required to play a few bright games. He needed to show that the incredible playoff series against Seattle wasn't a fluke. And Bates responded precisely the way he knew best, with points. He started the 1980-81 season with the Portland Trail Blazers and gradually turned into one of the team's most dangerous players. Bates still frequently came off the bench, but his role was becoming increasingly serious. He could completely change a game in a short stretch. The defender lagged a step. Bates was already shooting. A corridor to the basket opened up. He attacked instantly. Left with open space, he punished the opponent with a shot. His basketball was simple in design, but extremely difficult to guard. And then the playoffs arrived. Portland met the Kansas City Kings. For Bates, this was a chance to prove the previous year wasn't a coincidence. In the first game, he scored 25 points. In the second, 26. In the third, 34. 34 points from a player who until very recently was considered a reserve. But what happened next looks especially impressive today. Bates kept scoring, game after game. He wasn't just helping Portland, he was becoming one of the team's primary sources of scoring. In those playoffs, Bates played 6 games and averaged 28.3 points per contest. 28.3. For comparison, we were talking about a basketball player who had played a relatively short stretch of the previous season's regular schedule and wasn't yet considered a full-fledged star. And now, he was scoring nearly 30 points a game in the playoffs. This was the moment when a completely obvious question arose. Who even is this guy? And why did Portland get him so cheap? Bates possessed something that couldn't be taught in a few practices. His speed was natural, his leap was exceptional, and most importantly, he possessed a rare confidence in his own shot. He wasn't afraid to take responsibility. When the team needed points, the ball ended up in Bates's hands, and he shot. But behind the statistics, something else was happening. A reputation was gradually forming around him as a man of immense talent who, at the same time, remained an extremely difficult player for coaches. And here began the main contradiction of his career. On the court, Portland saw a basketball player capable of doing in a few minutes what took others an entire match. But a professional career requires more than just talent. Discipline, stability, and the ability to do the exact same hard work every day are necessary. Bates gradually ran into problems with this, and while fans looked at the numbers, 25 points, 26, 34, nearly 30 on average in the playoffs, a crack was already appearing inside the story. Because Portland had acquired a player who could look like a future superstar, but the question was whether Billy Ray Bates could live long enough at the level of his own talent. And very soon, this question would cease to be theoretical. Yet, precisely when it seemed Billy Ray Bates's career was finally reaching a new level, problems began that couldn't be solved by a single successful game. The 1981-82 season was supposed to be a continuation of his rise. Portland already knew very well that Bates could produce points out of practically nothing. He remained a player who came off the bench and immediately changed the game. And the numbers confirmed this. Over 75 games, he averaged 11.1 points in about 16 minutes on the floor. This didn't look like superstar stats, but Bates still possessed one of the most dangerous qualities in basketball. He could produce an incredible result in a very short span. In one game, he scored only 8 points. 2 days later, already 35. Then there was a game where he scored 4 points, and just a few matches later, Bates dropped 40 points against the Los Angeles Clippers. This is who Billy Ray Bates was. He couldn't be judged solely by his scoring average. One night he could practically vanish from the game, and the next he could throw a real show and score as many points as some players notched in 2 matches. But the coaching staff saw the other side too. It was getting harder and harder to keep Bates within the boundaries of a professional regimen. He was starting to lose concentration, miss team instructions, and his lifestyle outside the court was increasingly affecting his basketball. Bates himself admitted later that back then he spent too much time out at night and drank a lot. For Portland, this was becoming a serious problem. Because the talent hadn't gone anywhere, on the contrary, he could still step on the floor and destroy an opponent. But the team could no longer be sure which exact Billy Ray Bates would show up next. A player who a few months earlier looked like a potential superstar was gradually turning into a man the coach found harder and harder to control. And the most painful part was that Bates himself understood. Basketball was working out for him. He could play, he could score points, he could do things most players simply couldn't. But professional sports demanded much more from him than natural talent. By the end of the season, the situation reached a point where Portland had to make a decision. Bates agreed to go through a 2-week rehabilitation program related to alcohol problems. After that, he continued working with a psychologist. It seemed this could be a turning point. For Bates himself, this was a chance to prove he could change his life and save his career. But the Portland management had already lost patience. In September 1982, the club waived him. Billy Ray Bates found himself without a team at the age of just 26. And this is where the story becomes especially cruel. The man who had recently been scoring nearly 30 points a game in the playoffs turned out to be unwanted by the NBA. Furthermore, the problem wasn't that he forgot how to play. On the contrary, everyone knew very well what he could do on the court. It's just that the question was now framed entirely differently. Would Billy Ray Bates even be able to stick in professional basketball? The Washington Bullets decided to give him one more chance. For Bates, this was perhaps his last chance to prove Portland was wrong. And he understood this perfectly. He said he wanted to change his life, give up his old lifestyle, and focus solely on basketball. But the new chance lasted very short, and soon it would turn out the NBA was almost finished for Billy Ray Bates. After Portland, Billy Ray Bates indeed had a chance to reclaim his spot in the NBA. The Washington Bullets invited him to the team for the 1982-83 season. But this was a completely different Bates. He had turned 26. At this age, a player is usually just hitting the peak of his abilities. For Bates, everything happened in reverse. He had already managed to show how incredible his talent could be, but now he had to prove all over again that he could withstand the demands of professional basketball. In Washington, they gave him playing time, but very little. He played only 15 games for the team, appearing on the floor for about 18 minutes a game. His scoring average was 8.6 points. For a man who had recently scored nearly 30 points a game in the playoffs, this looked like a rapid descent. And yet, Bates didn't stop being dangerous. Even in short stretches, he could show that very basketball for which Portland fans once loved him. Fast drives, sharp shots, incredible leaps. But Washington didn't become a new beginning for him. Soon, Bates ended up with the Los Angeles Lakers. And this looked almost symbolic. The team featuring true superstars, the reigning NBA champion, a huge stage, and yet another chance to prove he had been written off too early. However, he had virtually no time left. Bates played only 4 games for the Lakers. 4. And after that, his NBA career was over. Just a few years earlier, he was an obscure player picked 47th. Then he suddenly transformed into one of Portland's brightest reserves, delivered phenomenal matches, and set records that still stand out in club history. And now, he was no longer in the NBA. And here arises the question that makes Bates's story so unusual. Why couldn't a player with such natural talent stick in the world's premier basketball league? The answer cannot be reduced to a single cause. Bates was an unorthodox player. His physical abilities allowed him to do incredible things, but professional basketball also demanded discipline, stability, right decisions, and the ability to maintain the exact same regimen for years. He had serious problems with this. But the most surprising thing was something else. When the NBA practically closed the door in Bates's face, basketball didn't end. It simply moved to another country. And there happened what almost nobody expected anymore. The player who rapidly lost his roster spot in the NBA headed to the Philippines. And right there, Billy Ray Bates became a superstar again. Only now, they would call him something else entirely. In 1983, Billy Ray Bates arrived in the Philippines and signed a contract with the Crispa Redmanizers. For a player who had just lost his spot in the NBA, this looked like a last attempt to save his career. But in the very first game, it became clear the Filipino fans didn't get an ordinary import. Bates scored 64 points and grabbed 20 rebounds. The arena was stunned. He moved so fast, defenders simply couldn't keep up with him. and once Bates picked up speed, stopping him was practically impossible. Very soon, they gave him the nickname Black Superman, and it turned out to be surprisingly accurate. That season, Bates averaged 41.7 points per game. For professional basketball, this is an utterly unbelievable figure. But what mattered even more was something else. He instantly became a fan favorite. The man the NBA had almost forgotten transformed into a true superstar in the Philippines. And now, he had everything he previously lacked: money, fame, and admirers. The Crispa Redmanizers got precisely the player they wanted. Bates didn't just score points, he turned every game into a show. Dunk followed dunk, then a long-range shot, then another lightning-fast drive to the rim. Fans came not just for the team anymore. They wanted to see the Black Superman. And Bates lived up to expectations. In 1983, he received the league's Best Import Award and helped Crispa win 2 championship titles. And then, the team did something even more impressive. Crispa finished the season with a grand slam, winning all 3 conferences. For Bates, this was a true triumph. In the NBA, his career ended after a few years, but in the Philippines, he found himself at the peak of the basketball world. However, along with success came a new life. Bates got his own car, an apartment, security guards, and endorsement deals. He was recognized on the streets. Almost nothing was refused to him. And right here began a problem that could no longer be solved by a single successful game. A whole cult rapidly formed around Billy Ray Bates. Filipino fans treated him almost like a local hero. His face appeared in commercials, his name sold athletic footwear, and his games drew massive crowds. Bates enjoyed this life. He recalled later that he could get practically anything he wanted. But along with money and fame came the return of old problems. Nightlife was becoming more important than practice. Alcohol was increasingly affecting his behavior, and then other problems related to his lifestyle appeared. At the same time, his basketball talent hadn't gone anywhere. Bates could step onto the floor even after a heavy night out and still score a huge amount of points. And this became the trap. As long as he kept scoring, people around him forgave him a lot. But professional sports cannot close its eyes to a destructive lifestyle indefinitely. Sooner or later, the price of such an existence had to show. After the Philippines, Bates continued playing outside the NBA. In 1984, he went to Switzerland, where he joined Freiburg Olympic. And there, the story repeated itself. Bates once again proved to be one of the brightest players in the league. In the 1984-85 season, he helped the team win the Swiss championship, averaging 29.3 points per game. It seemed he had found a place again where his talent could deliver results. But problems off the court didn't go away. Bates continued to live an extremely turbulent life. He could display top-tier basketball and then destroy his own career again through decisions made off the court. And yet his name continued to attract teams. In 1986, he returned to the Philippines. This time, he was invited by Ginebra San Miguel, and there Bates found himself near the summit once more. But now, he had to prove he was still capable of becoming that same Black Superman fans remembered from 1983. Bates's return to the Philippines turned out almost unbelievable. In 1986, he joined Ginebra San Miguel and teamed up with another famous import, Michael Hackett. Together, they helped the team win the Open Conference Championship. For Bates, this was yet another chance to prove his career wasn't over. And he did it again. In 22 games, he averaged 49.6 points per contest, almost 50 points. The player was already 30 years old. His career should have long been winding down, but the stats looked as though they belonged to a young phenomenon. However, another twist followed. In 1987, Bates returned to Ginebra and posted an even more incredible scoring average. He averaged 54.9 points per game. This was a completely different reality compared to the NBA, but at the same time, it was becoming increasingly obvious. His previous lifestyle was starting to destroy even the success he managed to preserve. On the court, he was still capable of the unbelievable, while outside of it, the situation was getting heavier. In 1987, Bates could still look invincible. He was scoring nearly 55 points a game and remained one of the top stars of Philippine basketball. But his life was gradually moving in the opposite direction. Night entertainment, alcohol, and discipline problems increasingly impacted his career. The scariest part was that Bates already saw the consequences of his decisions. He knew he was losing control. But stopping turned out to be much harder than simply stepping onto a basketball court and scoring another 40 points. In 1988, Bates played again for the Philippine team, which by then was called Añejo Rum 65. But this was no longer the Black Superman. He played only 4 games. The team lost all 4. After that, Bates was released from his contract. Thus ended his last notable chapter in the PBA. The player who once scored over 50 points a game found himself without a team again. But now the problem was much deeper than basketball. Bates was losing not just his career, he was gradually losing control over his own life. Following the end of his basketball career, Bates faced the consequences of many choices he had made over the previous years. He tried going through rehabilitation, attempted several times to return to a normal life, but troubles continued to haunt him. There were financial hardships, legal issues, and periods when it was extremely hard for him to cope with everyday life on his own. And all this looks especially daunting against the background of his past. Once upon a time, Billy Ray Bates would step onto the floor and make thousands of people rise from their seats. In the NBA, he demonstrated scoring output no one expected from a player of his status. In the Philippines, he became the Black Superman. He won championships, he received awards, he earned big money. But in the end, most of that remained in the past. Bates's story isn't just a tale about a basketball player who failed to fulfill his talent. It's the story of a man who was given a chance to start over several times, and each time, he could become great again. But holding on to that life turned out to be much harder than winning a single game. If you are interested in other tragic and lesser-known stories of NBA legends, be sure to check out a few more videos on our channel. Links to them will appear right now on your screen.